Hey everybody, welcome to episode 144 of the Masterclass. My name is Cam, and I am joined, of course, by Dave.
Hello.
Greetings.
Greetings.
How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Oh, I'm better now, Dave.
Good.
I missed you, man. We took a week
Yeah,
off.
we've kind of been away for a few weeks here.
It's the summer, though, so
Yes.
c'est la vie, right?
Yes.
But we're back, and
We are
that's
back.
exciting. And I think, along with our, inconsistency of recording over the last month or two, we also took a break from Romans for a couple episodes. But much like the school year, Romans is back in session.
Yes.
And
It is
we are
here.
in chapter 10.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Anything you want to talk about before we talk about the Bible?
We have moved Olivia to her college dorm room.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So that's a new experience. And Caroline is getting married in January, and she's finishing up her last semester. But her and Shay have got their apartment. They're not living together, for anybody that cares. But we have moved them in and moved a lot of furniture out, and we painted some rooms, and it's kind of fun to see them getting set up to begin life on their own.
I am so glad that I am hopefully at minimum 2 decades away from that. That sounds terrifying.
I don't know. I love it. I really do. I am so thrilled with my life stage right now. So
All right. Well, that's good.
yes, sorry children, I love you, but it's nice not having you in the house.
Yeah, well, I got mine in the house. She will be there for 16 more years.
At least.
At least.
At least. And it'll
I don't want
fly
to think about
by.
that. And that's the terrifying part.
Yeah.
Because
It does go by fast.
I will be on the brink of 49 in 16 years.
Yeah, well, I'm on the brink of 49 in 6 months.
Well, then, hey, we're keeping pace, Dave. Keeping pace. All right. Well, I guess all I want to say is, yeah, happy to be here.
Yes, I would
It's good to
agree.
be back.
Yes, it is.
I missed talking in the microphone and seeing your pretty face on my screen. Shall we dive in?
We shall. Would you like me to read?
Oh, but of course, sir.
Okay, so we're at Romans 10, and we're going to focus on verses 14 and 15. And we've decided that we'll be done with Romans 10 after we read those two. So, from the English Standard Version, Romans 10, 14, and 15. How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? And it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah says, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us? So faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. I read way past.
That's okay. I forgive you.
So 15 ends at, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we've got this nice little, I don't know if you want to use the word like workflow or funnel, Christian ladder. But how will they call on him who they've not believed, and how are they to believe? Never heard, and how are they to hear without someone preaching? So Paul is like walking backwards, right? It's like reverse engineering the
Yep.
process. And so maybe we start at the middle of 15 and work our way back to the beginning of 14. Do some reverse exegesis,
All right.
which would be Gexy? I don't know. I was trying to say exegesis backwards, but that's hard to say forwards.
Mhm.
So how are they to preach unless they are sent? What does it mean to be sent? Like to be shipped around, to be sent to new locations? Like I know there's more to it, but I guess let's just start there. What are your thoughts on what it means to be sent?
Well, I think there's an element of it just being intentional, of people having a sense of calling, a sense of obligation, a sense of this is what Jesus is asking of us to do. And so, in order for them to be sent, there's kind of the mission behind the gospel, the Great Commission. You have to be going to somebody with new information, as we refer to it, the good news. So, for somebody to be sent, there's an element of they don't know the message that I have, and so therefore, I am going out to present the good news. I'm going out to send, or going out to share this message that I have, and I won't go too far down it a little bit, but I'm a little bit curious as to where we are as a nation, America. I know there are other places in the world, but just where are we in terms of the gospel? Because at one point I would have said everybody in this country is aware of the gospel. Everybody knows about Jesus. Everybody kind of knows what his message is. And
I think that's a bit of a strong statement.
I was gonna say I don't know. Well, I don't think that's. I'm talking like 20 years ago. I felt that way, and I don't think I feel that way now.
Right, but I think I'm going to disagree with you here.
Okay.
It's like SNL syndrome. Everyone remembers the good cast, Chris Farley and Adam Sandler and all those guys.
That's not the good cast.
Well, Eddie Murphy, like fine, Dan Aykroyd, whatever. It depends on your generation.
Exactly.
But my point is,
exactly. Yes.
My point is like everyone looks back at their generation of SNL and thinks that they were the best because they only remember the good stuff. They only remember the Bassomatic, right? They only remember what was his name? Wish you would just shut your yapper. Lives in a van down by the river. I can't remember what his name was, but
Chris Farley.
That Chris Farley skit, right? And then they look at today's SNL and they see all of the mediocre or bad skits mixed in with the really good ones and think, wow, this cast sucks. The show's going downhill. But it's like, if you go back and watch what was going on, even, in your preferred generation or my preferred generation, there was a lot of duds mixed in with the good stuff. But memory is selective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, the statement that you made there of, there was at some point a time when everyone in the country, knew who the gospel was. Maybe it was when the Pilgrims came. That might be the last time. But even then, the Indians were here, right? The Native Americans.
Yes.
So I think it's easy to look back at the early 80s or the 50s and 60s and the Cleavers and all that stuff and think, oh, it was just, but I don't know. 70s and 60s was when porn became a big thing. So it can't really be accurate, right?
Yeah. Well, and when I say that, I don't mean everybody believed it. There was kind of an element of, America, quote unquote, being a Christian nation, and really anybody that lived in this country probably should have been exposed to the gospel at some point in their life versus somebody living in the Middle East or so I'm not saying everybody was Christian or everybody accepted the gospel, but I guess I would have said I feel like people should have been exposed to it more so than they are today. But again, I may be nostalgic and thinking it was better than it was.
Well, it's okay. The Bassomatic still holds up. So you remember that one time a youth group when you made Travis into the human blender,
I do.
and then he chewed up all those peanuts and then put them on 2 pieces of bread, and you ate the peanut sandwich
Yes,
and grossed out every single person in the room.
I do.
It's,
Not the
my favorite
grossest thing.
story
Not the
that's-
grossest thing I've done, but yes.
Well, that's my favorite story about how Dave got hepatitis. So sent, good, yes, awesome. How are they to preach? I think we all know what preaching is, right? Standing on a corner and yelling at drunk people.
And telling them they're sinners and they're going to hell.
Yeah. When in doubt, put it on your church sign. All right, so how are they to hear without someone preaching? I don't know. It's kind of that's probably a rhetorical question, right? I think all of these might be rhetorical.
They're somewhat rhetorical, but at the same time, God can get a hold of anybody he wants to get a hold of. So it's, as I read this, I don't want to fall into that trap of, well, if I don't do it, then how will these people ever know about Jesus? Their salvation completely rests on me doing the good deeds that I'm supposed to do, which I don't believe.
That's fair.
Because I think sometimes there's a little bit of as Christians, we put a little too much importance on ourselves and what we can do to share the gospel versus what the Holy Spirit is going to do for people to be convicted.
Well, that too, and even, I see a lot of young people that, are Christians and think that their only option post high school or college is ministry because, if they're good Christians, they're going to go into ministry, even though they may not have the capacity or proclivity for that sort of work.
Or I'll speak to my own. I really didn't want to do it.
But you did it anyway.
I did it anyway because that's what everybody else wanted me to. Well, I shouldn't say everybody else. That's not completely fair. I believe that others were putting kind of something on me to go into ministry. So I can relate to what you're saying because, yes, that's what a good Christian does is goes into ministry, which I don't agree with either.
Right. And I just, I've seen it in some of my former students and was something that I struggled with when I was in college and grad school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, the idea of going to law school and making, a bunch of money and being a big shot lawyer was really appealing to me because, it just stoked my ego big, right? And then I was like, well, but I shouldn't be chasing money because so I'll go into ministry, and that wasn't my only reason for doing it, right? Like,
no,
I had other reasons and skills and that sort of stuff too, but it was just one of those, like, to me it was one or the other, like chase the money or go be a poor youth pastor. And I was like, well, I'm sure there could have been a middle ground, which guess what? There is a middle ground.
There is a middle ground.
Right now, I'm a application developer by day and a youth pastor by night. So I found the middle ground, right?
Yep.
It allows me to use skills and problem solving abilities to provide for my family a lot better, but also allows me to do ministry and help as much as I can with the considerable help of others and the Holy Spirit teach people kids about Jesus. So there is a middle ground, and I just think a lot of times people can rush into ministry because they feel either guilted or like doing something else is going to like be a sin.
Yeah, or even not just a sin, but it's really not the best use of your gifts. It's really not the best use of your, you know, and like you said, those are not. It's kind of absurd to feel like you have to you have to choose one extreme or the other.
Well,
So
yeah, and it just goes on with the whole like being a professional Christian makes you a better Christian. Like,
mhm.
well, if there aren't Christians in the workplace, which I realize there are a ton, so I need to back down a bit here. Maybe your quote unquote ministry is being salt and light to the people at your quote unquote secular job. Like, and even that distinction, well, I'm in ministry and you get a secular job. It's like it's work, guys.
Yeah.
You know, it's work. Everyone's got to do it. So, if you have skills that are best used in the marketplace, go be a follower of Jesus in the marketplace.
Yes.
That's all. I mean, I would venture to say that could be a greater witness than a preacher because you have access to more people that need to hear the good news than a preacher does.
Mhm. I would absolutely agree. Yes.
But hey, how will they hear without someone who's a Christian working beside them? That's the Cam Brennan paraphrase. I can't really go changing scripture, but anyways. And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? Again, great question, Paul. It's like our own little biblical Socrates. That was a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure
I
reference,
just
by the way.
watched that the other day.
It's some of Keanu Reeves'
Wasn't
finest
as
work.
yeah, wasn't as good as I remembered.
Wild Stallions, man.
It was good. I don't get me wrong. It was entertaining, but yeah, not quite what I remembered.
I don't really think he was supposed to tug at your heartstrings. So again, another, pretty simple question. How are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? Well, I mean, the mountains, I don't know, right? Like there's that whole, like you mentioned earlier, not in so many words, but like the whole idea of general revelation. But again, the best way of knowing something is being told about it, right? And then being shown it
Mm-hmm.
after you've been told about it. So guess again, yes, Paul, this makes sense. How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed?
Hmm.
And I think this is actually a pretty interesting step to me of like, okay, they've heard, they've believed, and now when they call on God, that is an act of faith, right? That is an act of expectation that my belief is going to be confirmed, that there is going to be somebody on the other end of these prayers or these, longings or these cries or these, you know, um, I don't know, crying out, right?
Right.
And that to me is like a huge sign of someone getting past all of like the intellectual whatever and just like in their like soul reaching out for somebody
Mm-hmm.
and calling on God and saying like I need you, show up, and that's I think a really important step in anyone's um I hate this phrase, but like anyone's journey of faith, right? Is coming to that point where you have to just call out and be desperate for that relationship. And like I'm not there most days.
Oh
I'm
no.
too caught up in my own,
Yeah.
mumbo jumbo. But in those moments, it's like it's uh, a reminder that there is so much, beyond just what's in front of my face that is so much more important
Mm-hmm.
and so much more vital to life and existence and that sort of stuff. So it's kind of interesting going through like some of these well, as I call them, like simple rhetorical questions, like to get to Paul's point, like how then are they going to get to the point where they call on God, which is where we want people to be at,
Mm-hmm.
and going through all these other steps, like it's just another step along the way to get them to the point where they go, okay, yes, I need you,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, it's pretty encouraging to me to think that like being a part of any of one of those steps that God allows you to be a part of is like really cool because you may never see the end. You may never see that person get to that point, but like, as you've always said, like we have to, the results are up to God. Like we just have to trust him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's just kind of neat to think like God could use you in a very, very small way in someone's life. And then 4 steps down the road, that person, gets to that point and you never know about it. And it's not about like you getting accolades for it, but it's just like the whole idea that God could use people to do little things in other people's lives is just, I don't know. For whatever reason, that's hitting me pretty hard right now. It's really cool.
Yeah, and that's, I think this is a very pragmatic verse. It's very simple. It's not, to me, it's really not even preachy. It's just kind of this, hey, if not you, then who? If not no, if not now, then when? It's just sort of that. What's it going to take for this to happen? And it really is. It is very simple in terms of preaching the good news, being available to the Holy Spirit, and sharing that with other people. And I am not going to say that I do it all the time and that I do it a ton, but the older I get, the easier it is for me to talk about my faith with people. The easier it is to kind of ask people where they're at. And I, I've never really had an overly negative reaction of sharing the gospel with somebody. Now, I'm very intentional about who I share it with. I don't really share it with strangers. I'm not saying you can't share it with strangers, but
Hey, Mr. Aggressively Drunk Man, let's chat.
yeah, exactly. Um, and just um I I honestly, in some ways I feel like maybe I'm doing it wrong because I'm not persecuted. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of like this should be harder than it is, but I feel very blessed in that I have a very good reputation amongst the people that I work with, and that one people that I would never dreamed would come to me for advice or just questions about this stuff come to me. And then when I have asked or shared with people, it's um in my opinion, it's been overwhelmingly positive. And if there's been any negative, it's probably people being more defensive or trying to defend their actions than it is them kind of condemning me or anything. So I probably should be doing it more, but m- you know, um, I can genuinely say that I'm in a place in my life where I take great joy in talking about Jesus and the gospel, and if somebody is turned off by that, I'm I'm okay. I'm okay with that. So,
Yeah.
and even in that, it's not about me. I mean, it's about Jesus. It's about God. It's about us being obedient to Him. But this really, so I'm not going to say anything to the folks listening, but for me, this is really just speaking to me of like, why not? Why would you not do this? Why would you not just ask people about Jesus? Why would you not ask them about their spiritual journey? Why would you not ask them about, um, what they believe about eternity? Because I think people in general, it's broad strokes here of, I think people are looking for this and they want a genuine conversation about it. And again, it has to be the right person, the right place, right time. Um, but I think that's probably happens more frequently than we believe.
Yeah, I mean, I really love to agree with you 100% there. But there are people that are aggressive against it. But
Oh,
I do think
absolutely,
and I know
yes.
you're not.
Yeah.
I'm splitting hairs tonight, and I apologize, but I just yeah. I think the chances of you having a positive or rather neutral conversation are much higher than a negative one. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what you're
Mhm.
saying. I think there's almost like and I don't mean to like sully the whole thing, but this like same pressure you feel like when you're gonna go ask a girl out for the first time.
Mhm.
Like, oh, hey, say no and laugh at my face and tell all their friends that I'm fat and ugly or and stupid, right? And like you go through like all the nuclear scenarios in your head of like, my life will be over when this person says no when I ask them out. But like,
No.
you know, I don't know. I've been rejected before. Guess what?
You survived.
I survived. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I just think it's to your point. Why not bring it up when it's appropriate or when you feel the leading of the spirit? Don't feel like you need to be aggressive about it, guys and girls.
Well, and even in that, one of the things that I've learned is how you ask the question. Like one of the things I'll ask people is what's your faith background? Tell me about your faith background. Did you grow up in the church? Did you?
What if they look at you like, what? What? That's not English. Faith background. What the heck does that mean?
Well, then what I would say is did you go to church growing up? Did you go to church growing up? And then if they say no, then so then
What is your preferred house of worship?
well, it's kind of like those clips of Donald Trump where he reiterates over and over again that he's a Protestant, that he's Presbyterian, that he's, because that's even a clue right there. When somebody tells you that they're Protestant or that they're Presbyterian, it probably means they don't totally understand a relationship with Jesus. But
I don't watch those videos, Dave.
well, I try to avoid them, but every now and then I do see them.
Nobody got time for that.
Or what's your spiritual journey? What do you think about God? Do you think God exists? Do you think God's real? If you do think he's real, do you think he cares about what's going on? And I mean, there's so many ways you can enter into those conversations without having to say, "Hey, I noticed you have 4 wheels and tires on your car. Did you know that there's 4 spiritual laws?" And the first spiritual law,
Is wear your seatbelt.
you don't have to go straight into the kill for the gospel of telling people they need Jesus. You can start somewhere else. And
Yeah.
like I said, I've kind of been paying closer attention to that probably for about 2+ years now. And not once in the last 2+ years when I've asked somebody kind of what's your faith background? What's your spiritual journey? What do you think about God? Has it turned out to be a negative conversation? Not once.
Well, that's encouraging, Dave. Thanks for sharing. That sounded condescending. That is not how I intended that to come out whatsoever. Like as I was talking, I was like, nope, that's not the right tone. I apologize. Thank you, Dave, for sharing. That was very encouraging.
Yes.
Well, we worked our way backwards through 2 verses. That's the first time we've ever gone backwards in this show.
Are you sure?
Through the verses like that? Yeah. We may have like
Okay.
jumped back to like other verses, but we always went forward.
Yes.
This is the first time where we started at the end and worked our way back to the beginning.
Awesome.
Well, I mean, I think so.
I think so as well.
I think that's all she wrote, Dave.
All right.
And we have a call-in send-off this episode. So Dave and I will bid you farewell. Who knows what's coming next?
I'm curious. Oh boy.
All right. Show notes are supermegacorp.net/masterclass/144, or in your podcast app of choice. If you look in the show notes, you'll find links to our phone number, so you can call in and leave a voicemail, or you could do email. You get Dave on Twitter, get me on Instagram. Click on all the links. Yeah, our Patreon is there, so shout out to our patrons again this month. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right.
No bad joke to end the show on. I know everyone's really disappointed about that. All right, Dave, say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Toodles.
Hello, my name's Edith Duff, but you can call me E. Just wanted to say thanks for listening to Masterclass. You have a good day now, you hear?